welcome you on behalf of the Pavilion family, owners of the castle. Beauregard's story begins in the 16th century. We are standing in the hunting lodge of the castle of Chambord, which at the time was a much smaller building, a small manor that was part of the Crown lands and used as a hunting venue by Francis I. The current building was erected by Jean Duthier, who was Secretary of State for King Henry II. Jean Duthier was an important man and is responsible for creating the castle as we know it today. The second major player in the history of Beauregard is Paul Hardier, whom we will get to know at length in the Gallery of Portraits. Hardier, who came to the castle in 1617, is the man who initiated the collection of 327 portraits. The Gallery of Portraits is what has made Beauregard famous, and this since the 17th century. The portraits in this room were put together by 3 generations of the same family over the course of the 17th century. It took 60 years to complete the collection you see today. The first Hardier to move to Beauregard was Paul. Paul Hardier was minister to King Louis XIII and had been a minister to the kings of France for nearly 50 years. At the age of 72, Paul Hardier retired and purchased a castle in Touraine where he planned to spend the rest of his life. Hardier was a rich and important man. When he arrived at Beauregard, he was still very dynamic despite his old age for the time. Paul Hardier was passionate about French political history, and like many historians at the end of their lives, he wanted to tell his version of France's history. What is exceptional is that he chose not to do this in writing, but through a gallery of portraits, leaving us a history of France in pictures. Hence this spectacular collection of 327 faces. An accumulation of 327 portraits covering 15 reigns. 315 years of French history are told here. Paul Hardier sets a strict time limit to his story. It starts with Philip VI, who came to the throne in 1328, and from right to left, doing a complete tour of the room, we will see 15 monarchs and 15 reigns. Men and women of political importance, both in France and internationally, surround each king. The men and women who were selected for inclusion in this gallery were so only because of their major political role in the history of France over this 315-year period. As we do a complete tour of the gallery, we come to the last king represented here, Louis XIII. Ending with Louis XIII was logical because it was during his reign that the collection was started. Hardier completed the gallery with his own king. Louis XIII died in 1643. Remember, we started in 1328, representing 315 years of French political history. This gallery is not only a history of France, but also a fabulous insight into European history, and this due to the mirror effect of its diplomatic policy. France was at the time one of the major Western powers, and when recounting its foreign and diplomatic history, we immediately grasp the history of Europe and 315 years of European events.